Enjoying a story is my favorite thing to do. Whether it's a TV show, movie, a book, or just listening to one of your friends tell you a funny story, it's a part of all of our lives and it's inescapable. And over the last couple of decades, we have seen an increase in Hollywood's continuous reboots, sequels, and spin-offs to already existing properties as an easy way to make money due to the built-in audience. But there are instances where it really works. Did you know that the hit sitcom Frasier is a spin-off? Yeah. Frasier was a character on Cheers for 9 years before he got his own show. While I think that continuous storytelling and building upon a previously established world is really fun for both creators and audiences, it does beg a question that I haven't really seen posed. Where does it end? If something like Star Wars has an unlimited amount of spin-off and sequel compatibility due to the excellent world building and character work, we have to wonder, where should it stop? I think this is one of the biggest reasons that Disney and other large studios are failing right now. They've forgotten that endings are the most important part of a story. When there's an ending coming, we have time to prepare for it. We're able to understand that when we start watching a show like Breaking Bad today, that it has 5 seasons, and we know that we can prepare for it, and we know what we're in for. But with Star Wars, there's an unlimited amount of what's coming, because there are unlimited amounts of Star Wars and shows. There's an unlimited amount of Star Wars and movies and TV shows, and while we absolutely can make all this content, we never really stop to ask if we should. Endings make things and stories easier to endure when they're not so great, because we know that we can make it through to this one part and get to the ending. I know what this is like. I've slept through Thor: The Dark World on more than one occasion. I think in media of the past, we've seen 3 different types of endings. The most common one is something like Firefly, where the story is cut down too soon. There will never be a conclusion to the narrative. This one's painful if you fall in love with something, only to see that it will never garner the success that will give you more of it. The second one that I feel many popular TV shows fall into is that they live too long. The shows drag out past their natural conclusion and have to repeat their arcs and storylines to the point that the only reason you're watching by the end is just to get to the end. This would be something like The Walking Dead or The Simpsons, or what the Harry Potter franchise is turning into. Although that failure may not be down to the quality of the storytelling, but when we're lucky, once in a blue moon, there's the ending to a story that gets to happen when the creators are ready. And if we're even luckier, that ending is great. This would be something like Breaking Bad or Attack on Titan. The ending builds on what came before and naturally concludes the story based upon the themes and character arcs that have been established. That kind of ending is becoming more and more rare because endings are getting rarer. This is a huge issue because the most popular franchises are seemingly unending. If there's no satisfactory final bite for the audience to chew on, how can it be a satisfactory story? The MCU right now is the biggest franchise in the world. Yeah, if we look at Disney Plus viewers and box office numbers, there's been a pretty clear decline in viewership lately, but I think a couple of bad years isn't the end. The MCU will keep chugging along, probably forever, even if it gets down to only like 1 movie a year. However, I don't think that will happen. There have been recent reports that Marvel is restructuring. They're going to be getting actual showrunners now, putting people in charge of stuff who actually are given creative control. And because of this, it begs the question, how should the MCU be handling its future? Should it be the same as Star Wars, where it's just constant spin-offs and interconnected media that fill in the gaps of previous stories? And what should DC do now that it's starting its brand new expansive universe? What's the best way to continue a long-running franchise? I think the MCU and even Star Wars had the right idea, but Star Wars in particular is faltering. I think something that's important for ongoing series is to be continuously introducing new characters and concepts, and in doing this you are keeping things engaging and not just relying on the same things that initially brought the story popularity. Star Wars did this under George Lucas. I think that if Disney wrote the prequels, they would probably have incorporated Han Solo's dad in there somewhere, but by using new characters like Padme and Cody and Mace Windu, the prequels built their own 2 legs. The biggest issues with Star Wars right now is that, aside from the Mandalorian and Grogu, it's completely reliant on previously established characters, and even then, the Mandalorian is a Boba Fett ripoff and Grogu is just a chibi Yoda. So what's the best way to handle long-form storytelling that never has a true ending? Just an ending of a project that you already know has a sequel in the works, and a story that you know will continue probably for the rest of your life due to its success. Should it be done like Star Trek, where every new property is a reboot and builds upon what made the old stuff great? Or should they instead use spin-offs and do what Better Call Saul did, flesh out the world from new and interesting angles? The reason I'm so worried about this is because I want you to think, how could the MCU ever end? What kind of ending could ever be satisfying to the plethora of different television and film they've spanned over the last 15 years? What about Star Wars? What's the point of all the spin-offs in the first place? It seems like most of them are building up to the Heir to the Empire movie, but what then? There are more spin-offs in the works. I don't think the Rey movie's going to connect, and as far as I can tell, the Skeleton Crew that's coming out next year, it won't. I just find myself asking, what's the point? Why should I care when there's infinite content? Why should I care when every aspect of this world is being explored and nothing's being left to my imagination? I think stories are at their best when they're focused, when the author has an image in their head of what they want things to be like. The MCU used to do that. Phase 1 built up to the Avengers, Phase 2 to Age of Ultron, and then Phase 3 ended with Avengers Endgame with a Spider-Man epilogue. And now we're in Phase 5, which is surprising, because there was no Phase 4 moment where everything, or even something, came together. It just feels like constant, meaningless, empty content. I think the way that Disney should be running its business model with both Star Wars and Marvel already has a precedent, though. A show that's been running for 60 years as of today, and has continuously reinvented itself over the decades to stay fresh and interesting. That show is Doctor Who. I've been trying to list really popular media so far on this project, and while Doctor Who isn't exactly niche, it pales in comparison to the popularity of the projects I've mentioned. The way Doctor Who works is that it follows an alien. He travels through the universe with people that he meets along the way through time and space. However, whenever this alien, the Doctor, gets injured or sick, he has this neat little trick called regeneration, where his body rebuilds itself to survive. Effectively, the show has a built-in recast mechanic that allows the show to continue forever. I'm not suggesting that all of our long-running shows should just recast like the Bond films whenever it's time to replace an actor, but I think it's more about the changes themselves. The Doctor is able to be a gentle and kind guy who hardly raises his voice in one episode, and then a few later, he's quite pompous and vain and will randomly walk into a room and declare, "Villain! Murderer! Doctor!" Due to the recasting nature of the show, it's really easy to separate the different eras from one another and see how the writers utilize the actors to the fullest of their ability. Due to the recasting nature of the show, it's really easy to separate the different eras from one another and see how the writers utilize different actors and set pieces to the fullest of their ability. The show is excellent at changing. It's constantly updating itself and finding new writers to build up this universe rather than restrict it just to a handful of minds at the top. Doctor Who is a show that is built for change, even if you're not ready for it.
Can you change back?
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
Oh.
Can you?
No. Do you want to leave?
Do you want me to leave?
No, but your choice.
In fact, a brand new Doctor's era is starting this Christmas. Go watch it if you can. It'll be on Disney Plus now that Disney has bought the streaming rights to the new episodes. I think like many episodes of the past, this new one will be a fresh start. And I from the get-go know that this new Doctor will also leave the role and that will mark the close of another chapter of Doctor Who. And I think that this is the kind of structuring that the MCU and Star Wars and even James Gunn's DC universe need to adopt in order to find success. Built like a chapter book. I think Star Wars needs to bring its media together in order to make the franchise feel alive again. Imagine if all the Star Wars shows that have been coming out over the last few years directly fed into Heir to the Empire, and that acted as a finale. As it stands, it feels like a few are building to that, and there are a bunch of others that only vaguely connect. The MCU was nailing this before COVID, and maybe that messed everything up, but the lack of Avengers or some kind of huge crossover at the end of Phase 4 really hurt this universe in ways that I don't think can be measured. Because at this point, there's no reason to go back and watch Shang-Chi or Ms. Marvel or Moon Knight, no incentive for audiences to watch and fall in love with these new characters. And then when the previously established characters come back, audiences cared less and less until no one cares about the universe at all. Because new things are what get people hooked to keep watching, but endings are what get people to talk about your project forever. That's why whenever someone talks about the MCU online, you always see comments about how the MCU ended with Endgame, or the only thing after Endgame I care about are No Way Home and Guardians Volume 3, and both of those are also endings. So yeah, I do think stories should end. It's okay for chapters to close and another one to open. It's okay for them to be sequels, even sequels to large expansive universes. That's not me asking for the MCU 2, Electric Boogaloo, but I do think that if audiences like a world that has been created, they'll be willing to stick with it even in the next era of its lifespan. It would be nice if the MCU could end, or Star Wars could be put to rest for at least a few years, but that won't happen in our capitalistic world. The next best thing for us is to get the close of a chapter, and if we feel satisfied, we won't always feel the need to open the next one. It's okay for the things we love to end. It's okay for a great movie to just be that. Remember how at the beginning of the video I mentioned a story from a friend? Something like how when I was in 4th grade, it was pajama day in elementary school, and I was worried that it would be hot at school, so I decided to wear 2 pairs of pajama pants. But I was burning hot by the time it was recess, so I was talking to my friends about it, and it turned out that my friend Jacob had done the same. So we both pulled down our top pair of pants to our ankles and started hopping around thinking we were funny. And one of the teachers yelled over a megaphone across the field,
"Boys, put your pants on."
and we both thought it was really funny. Now, when I say that story, I don't think you expect me to have a sequel in the works. It's okay for this story to be just that, and I think we all know that. But I have spin-off stories about myself. I have stories about myself and Jacob and the antics we got into. Stories that might better detail how we are as people. But I also have stories about later in my life, when me and my buddies would hide people's backpacks in the school ceilings for fun. Expanded universes are kinda similar, disconnected but all in the same pre-established world. And if we are going to be getting unending content forever that exists in the same universes we've already seen, then I want to go one chapter at a time. I want to see one ending at a time. I want these stories to be allowed to end. But if we can't get that, then I think we should get very clear chapters, with conclusions that bring the pieces together, rather than just leave them as sequel bait. I think it should act like Doctor Who, where maybe there's a figurehead, and when they decide to leave, you know what comes next will be entirely different. For us as the audience, though, I think that what we can do is be willing to leave something that has lived past its expiration date. And then we'll have to wait until something changes. I think all of these stories should end. Breaking Bad would not be better if there were 10 extra seasons of Jesse living in Alaska just chillin', but that's not the way of the world now. I think if creators and publishers aren't willing to end things, then we will have to find our own endings. We'll end up leaving with our favorite characters, and if stories don't know how to end the chapter, only lead up to the next one, then it's all just filler. So that was the video. This started out as me trying to talk about Doctor Who for the 60th anniversary, but I'm so genuinely awful at explaining why I like things that I had to morph this into something that would at least mention the show. I worked in retail for 2 years and I still can't recommend things I like to people. But I think this is an interesting topic because DC is about to start its big cinematic universe, and I don't want it to fall in the same place as the MCU did. It's not like putting my opinions out there will change any of it. I feel better knowing that I at least tried. Thanks for watching, thanks to my editor, me, and yeah, basically, bye.